Were you caught off guard by the launch of that
We
game?
knew we were going to have a lot of bumps. That's a difficult development. A lot of new systems and things like that. Hey, we're going to go try this new thing. And anytime you're going to do something new like that, you know you're going to have your bumps. You know that a lot of people might say, that's not the game we want from you. A lot of those difficulties ended up on the screen, and we knew, hey, look, this is not the type of game that people are used to from us, and we're going to get some criticism on it. And a lot of that very well-deserved criticism. We knew that going into this. We knew it's not that, right?
Yeah.
You would say, look, this isn't a game, even from the beginning, this is not going to be like, high Metacritic game. That's not what this is, given what it is. But we felt strongly this is a game we want to play. This is something we really want to do. And all of the games like this, whether it's us or somebody else, you can go back and look at them. There's a period once you launch. It's not how you launch, it's what it becomes. And
take me home to the place I belong.
we always start with the world, and this time it features all new rendering, lighting, and landscape technology. It allows us to have 16 times the detail.
It has been 5+ years since Fallout 76 was the most controversial thing on the planet in gaming. It was something that everybody was talking about. It was review bombed on Steam. The reviews from critics was horrible, and it was genuinely awful. It was something that was barely functional, and Bethesda, even in some of their notes and some of the stuff that they gave out pre-release, indicated that, yeah, this is an unfinished product, and we plan to improve it over time. And they did. Fallout 76 did have a little bit of a comeback with the Wastelanders update. That was Bethesda rectifying some of their big mistakes that they made with the experience. And ultimately, I think a lot of people don't remember that E3 presentation for Fallout 76, in which there was already so many concerns based on reports that Fallout 76 was going to be an online multiplayer experience, and so many people were disappointed by what it was, because fundamentally the idea of Fallout multiplayer is fine. It's something that a lot of people just absolutely love the idea of, but I think everybody wanted Fallout 4 but with co-op. That's what they wanted from Fallout 76. That's why when Todd Howard took the stage at E3, I think it was 2017, 2018, and he talked about Fallout 76, 16 times the details. It just fell flat for a lot of people. But there was also Todd Howard trying to do damage control in what Fallout 76 was going to be. It was still narrative. It was still something you could play by yourself. But the issue is that Fallout 76's story sucked because of the way it was told. They had holotapes, they had terminals, and they had notes, and that was the Fallout 76 story at the beginning, in which you pretty much were following the Overseer's trail and you're trying to figure out what the heck happened to Appalachia. And if you actually did pay attention to all of that stuff, it was actually kind of interesting. It was just told in the worst way possible. Eventually, though, you would reach the endgame portion of 76, which involves you launching a nuke, taking on the Scorch Beast Queen, and then getting all kinds of legendary items, and then doing that grind over and over again. But the original vision of what Todd Howard and Bethesda described 76 as was an experience that you could play with friends. There was a new story. There were factions that you could join. There was camp building. It was a giant open world, their biggest to date, bunch of diverse environments, tons of lore to discover, quests to take on, loot to earn, different weapons and things that you could make, various enemies to kill, including massive boss fights. Easy to forget now, but there even was some PvP. Fallout 76 was described as a grand experience, and on day one, it just wasn't that. That's why the reception was overwhelmingly negative. And yes, there were a community of players that stuck with it and thought that 76 was still pretty amazing. And ultimately, though, Bethesda knew that their original vision, it had to be tweaked. It had to be much more. And based on the insider accounts at the time, it's quite clear that Bethesda didn't really care to put in the effort at the time for 76, as they just really wanted to get this out there, as this was their way of having recurrent consumer spending for the Fallout franchise, just as ESO has represented that for the Elder Scrolls franchise for the last number of years. Although both of those games fundamentally go about their way of monetizing and going about doing things very, very different. But pretty much Fallout 76 turned into Fallout 4, kinda. Wastelanders was our first taste of that. We got human NPCs, we got a new storyline, settlers versus raiders. It pretty much is generic good versus bad, it is fine. It is, there's decisions to make. There's some weapons that you earn, unique stuff. There's a bunch of other stuff that you have to grind for. It takes a while. But Wastelanders was the upside. That was where I really felt optimistic about Fallout's future, Fallout 76's future, as long as they continued down that road. But ultimately, that's not what happened. Fallout 76 regressed into what it has been for the longest time. It is a looter shooter with a Fallout theme. It's something that is fun to have friends with, but it's not much more than that. That's why with the success of the Fallout TV show, we're having a lot more discussions recently about which Fallout game is best to start off with. And many individuals are going with a chronological timeline in which, yeah, Fallout 76 technically is where you would start. But the problem is that Fallout 76 is hardly a Fallout game. And this isn't me just speaking as a purist. Fallout is known for its story. It is known for its characters, the exact things that many love and fell in love with the TV show, with Lucy, the Ghoul, Maximus, and the other characters that make up that TV show. But 76 just doesn't have any of that. It does have story content. It does have decisions that you can make, but these decisions, these stories are nowhere near the quality of that we have seen in previous Fallout games, whether that be Fallout 1 or 2, or Fallout New Vegas, which is considered one of the best role-playing games of all time, or even Fallout 3 and 4, in which there is tons of amazing lore and side quests to take on, even though I am very critical of the main narratives of those games. But I would still take those games over 76 any day of the week because of the fact that 76 still is not good. It sucks. And I do think people need to understand that I am somebody who has played this game extensively over the years. I'm over 130 something levels. I understand that's technically low on the totem pole compared to some of the hours that individuals have put into this game, but I have played almost all of the content within Fallout 76. And after the Wastelanders update, the amount of narrative content that we got the last couple of years it's not much. There was the Steel Dawn expansion, which introduced the Brotherhood of Steel into Appalachia. That ended up being, again, more generic good versus bad guy nonsense, and it just was poorly written with laughable characters. I think that's really my overall consensus on a lot of the characters that are introduced and the companions that you can take on. There's just laughable narratives that just pale in comparison to Fallout 4, a game that at one point I called the biggest mistake for Bethesda. That should tell you all you need to know about how I personally feel about Fallout 76's quality and in terms of narrative. And Jesus Christ, Bethesda's obsession with inputting the Brotherhood in every aspect of Fallout is tiresome, along with the sheer amount of nostalgia bait that this live service has decided to include the last few years, which might not be too much of an issue if it was actually done well, but each instance it just feels half-assed and lazy. Like, I'm certain we could have gone without another Super Mutants FEV storyline. It's just wild to me that you actually have some interesting local factions with compelling backstories, and they've done very little or really next to nothing with most of them since launch. I would assume a Mole Miners DLC wouldn't spark the same interest as the big flashy hunks of metal that have been at the center of every Bethesda Fallout experience to date. So thus, that would probably be the reason why. And also the marketing, that's a big one. Bethesda loves to have that power armor front and center, even if they have to go out of their way to make it happen and make it make sense. But after Steel Rain, which was the finale to the Brotherhood expansion, Bethesda really slowed down on narrative content for a while, and they started to really invest into gameplay experiences within the world of Appalachia, which was daily ops and all kinds of different activities in which you were shooting at bullet sponges. I mean, that's what happens a lot with this game. But say what you will, that is the bread and butter of 76, and a lot of people fell in love with it. There's a reason why, if you check on the top played Xbox games, Fallout 76 has continuously ranked in the top 50 for the last I don't know how many years, and it also helps the fact that this game is part of Xbox Game Pass, and is part of one of the biggest gaming franchises ever. Now, for the last couple of years, we have seen some major changes happening with Fallout 76's development. Specifically, we have seen a number of lead developers that were working on 76 depart from Bethesda Game Studios. And then we did see the announcement of external development studios being brought in to make and create new content for 76. So it can be assumed that Bethesda Austin is not as involved as they once were. Of course, they're probably overseeing making sure everything's lore accurate and still assisting in some regard to making new content for 76, but they are no longer the main development studio behind this. They have turned their priorities likely to Bethesda's mainline projects such as Starfield and soon probably the Elder Scrolls 6. That seems to be a team effort between all of the Bethesda Game Studios. After Steel Dawn and Reign, which was an 8-hour expansion split into 2 parts that took over a year developing and marketing, we again saw Fallout 76 pivot in the content it prioritized. The development teams on 76 moved away from the narrative content, which led to the live service being devoid of new content for an extended period of time. Of course, there was new in-game events and a few new gameplay additions here and there, but the game was pretty dry for a while. I assume that could partially be blamed on the uncertainty surrounding the Xbox Bethesda merger at the time, but it also could just be the case of creating voiced animated NPCs is expensive in terms of resources required. And the top brass at Bethesda indicated that content like Steel Dawn and Wastelanders wasn't going to be a regular occurrence. The health of 76's player base also needs to be considered, because while this live service has survived 5+ years and has had a dedicated player base, its monetization has largely come from its atomic shop. The game has only cost a few dollars for a couple of years now, and again is free to play on Game Pass. And with none of its content costing money, it has led to Bethesda really pushing the atomic shop, which mostly includes overpriced cosmetic items and different types of bundles of items that you can utilize for your campsite. But Bethesda has also included some controversial items, which has led to pay-for-convenience accusations over the years. The Fallout 1 subscription service also was deeply unpopular when it was announced, as it locked behind it gameplay features that many players had believed would be free, such as private worlds and a number of unique cosmetics. That assumption didn't come out of nowhere, as Bethesda's top brass had said all new content after launch would be free, until it wasn't. Bethesda executive Pete Hines in 2020 spoke about the game's rough start and then pivoted to discussing Fallout first and the accusations that they were liars for monetizing what was originally supposed to be free content.
You don't get Horizon Zero Dawn if that team sticks to what they were known for and had always made. They pivoted and tried something that I think is substantially different than what they had made before, and it's one of my favorite games of the last 5 years. And so I mean, you're hoping that when you try something risky and different that you end up with Horizon Zero Dawn and not with a lot of bumps and issues, but that doesn't mean you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Right, this game that launched in a state you weren't happy with, certain players weren't happy with, everybody knew there could be...
I mean, we can go further than just certain players.
People
weren't happy with I'm pretty self-aware. Yeah,
I know you are. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't call you out here.
Yeah, it was more than certain.
All right, everybody hated and thought it sucked.
There was enough of those.
Yeah,
that's the one that gets to me the most.
Yeah.
Is the like, you lied to us. Like, it just bothers me because that's not, I guess, the main thing that I sort of beat the drum on in terms of how we're going to do things. But at the end of the day, it's also semantics. Like, if I said, hey, Greg, I'm taking the Kind of Funny crew to Chuck E. Cheese on Saturday, it's going to be awesome, and you're all excited about going to Chuck E. Cheese, and then Friday I come down with the flu, like, sorry, bud, we're not going. I have boys, they're significantly older now, but when they were little kids, they'd be like, you lied, you said we were going to Chuck E. Cheese. Like, no, bud, I didn't lie. Like, I planned on taking you. Stuff
situation has changed,
right? At the end of the day, he's still mad whether I lied or he's just not going. He's mad. If I tell you, hey, here's what I know that the plan is and what we're doing, and then down the road those plans change, I just got so much of the, like, you're a liar, and it just bothers me a lot because I know that's not how I approach things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, even if I convince you that I didn't lie, you're still going to be angry that we changed our minds. So what does it matter?
I think what happened here was a case of Bethesda realizing they had put themselves in a corner, as they didn't have enough recurrent consumer spending to keep the live service afloat, thus the invention of the $100 a year Fallout First subscription service. Bethesda also for the longest time had spoken about eventually adding full-on mod support to 76, and it never happened. Why? I assume because it would have destroyed the monetization of this live service, so they just stopped talking about it and never did it. In addition to the Atomic Shop in Fallout First, there is Seasons, essentially 76's Battle Pass. By doing challenges, you earn tickets that can be used on items in the Season Pass. This too can be skipped by purchasing atoms with real-world money, or you can endure the lengthy grind. Still though, various gameplay items are locked away and only available if you are subscribed to Fallout First. That is the business model of 76, which is as crappy as most MMORPGs these days, but maybe not the worst. Based on the amount of players I've personally seen with Fallout First survival tents, I would say the business model has been effective. Now, Appalachia more recently has seen some new in-game locations, such as Nuka World on tour and other quality of life changes, but the big thing that has been heavily marketed to bring in new players is Expeditions. Expeditions essentially takes you to iconic locations outside of Appalachia, which on paper should be kind of exciting. The first one that was teased was the Pit, a location we previously went to in Fallout 3's DLC of the same name. Unfortunately, though, these expeditions are kind of pathetic. The way they work is you go there, shoot some things, and come back. That's it. There is no side quests, exploration, or cool mysteries to discover. It's a new enemy you fight against in a recognizable location that you can't really interact with in a meaningful way. After the Pit, 76 introduced Atlantic City, which essentially is the same thing, although in the past you had to refuel the vertibird by doing daily quests just to do one of these expeditions. There's just been a lot of grind in 76 over the years. That was removed, fortunately, with the Atlantic City expeditions when they were introduced, but the gameplay of Atlantic City's expeditions has been basically the same thing as the Pit. You go to a specific part of Atlantic City, maybe have a quick conversation, shoot at a few enemies, and go back. It's pretty much raids. Although 76 did eventually add some actual new narrative content with these environments. They reused parts of Atlantic City's expeditions, connecting them by sewer tunnels. Yeah, it's a bit odd, whatever, to tell a 2-hour story about a mob boss's daughter that gets addicted to a rare chem that can only be cured by doing a series of fetch quests. There is interactions with the Atlantic City mob and some mini games there, but it's just not enjoyable. It's boring content that often feels soulless. A part of this America's Playground update, there is a new very small open area within Atlantic City's boardwalk that you can explore, but there's very little interactivity to be found. Being a bit more specific, I would actually not even describe this as a place you can explore, more so you can free roam this new area, but there is nothing really to gain or do besides the quests within this area that are initiated outside of this space. I don't think there's vendors or anyone that you can actually have a conversation with. Not sure why they even bothered, really. In the future, Bethesda has teased that for the first time they will be expanding the base map of 76. On their website, they teased at the end of last year, war never changes, but that sure doesn't stop Appalachia from mutating. Later in 2024, we're expanding our map southward, deep into the wooded heartland of Shenandoah. This uncharted, once tranquil expanse in the heart of Virginia will bring a new questline, factions, and rewards, and if the past 5 years is anything to go off of, I just don't believe it'll be worth the wait. So hopefully you have an understanding of why I just don't like Fallout 76 still, and that's because it just isn't really a true Fallout game. Some would argue it never was trying to be that, but I would argue it certainly was when it introduced human NPCs and various storylines that fleshed out Appalachia. Quality matters, and it's very inconsistent here. Being that you can play this with friends, that does make a difference, as any game can be enjoyable with some buds, especially with the Fallout backdrop. But especially with 76, playing this solo can be rough in those early hours, especially when confronted with extremely difficult bullet sponge enemies. Getting the best weapons and gear is a grind, something that comes with completing all of the main content the game offers and then doing in-game events, daily ops, and other side activities. It can be a chore, but there is certainly fun to be found. There's lore, factions to join, there's tons of quests and in-game events, a variety of iconic enemies and boss encounters, all kinds of unique weapons and outfits that you can earn, different builds to play around with. It has a gameplay loop that can grab you. One of the best in-game communities that I've ever seen. You can customize your own campsite just like in Fallout 4, visit and admire other players' creations along with buying items from them, explore and discover locations, with the open world having 6 and soon 7 distinct regions. There's crafting. That's the side of Fallout 76 that works. It also is a lot more stable in the Series X with a 60 FPS mode available, but there of course are still bugs. I mean, this is Bethesda we're talking about, and we still are dealing with the creation engine, which that jankiness is always going to be there. But then there's the other side, in which 76's quest design is often hand-holding and having you go there, shoot some things, and that's about it. There's extensive amounts of grind, really, with all of Fallout 76's content to date. Gunplay is hit or miss, really depending on what weapon you're utilizing, because that Bethesda jank is still there with combat. PvP is pretty much dead within this game. It always kind of has, and it only really worked well with the underrated Nuclear Winter Battle Royale mode, which, well, it was deleted a while ago. Reaching the point in which you can hold down your own against high-level enemies is a lengthy grind, especially if you play alone. I would actually say various boss fights can be painful and unforgiving for those under level 100 and those that haven't perfected a build with the right weapons, armor, serum, special cards, and other items. The story content quality is just not good, the writing isn't smart or interesting at all, the dialogue options available often don't really have any significance, the characters are completely forgettable and often one-dimensional. It's like an even worse version of Fallout 4, or actually I'd say much worse than Fallout 4, but one that you can do alongside some friends, which might be enough for diehard fans of the franchise. But for myself, I'm just bothered by the fact that the longer this live service continues, the higher likelihood that the next new Fallout experience will be Fallout 5, which is probably around 8 or so years away. So for the well actually crowd that inevitably will blow up the comment section, I do agree that whether you will like 76 or not depends on what you expect from this game. If you care about story and choices, this probably isn't the game to play. If you want to get invested in a grindy looter shooter that has you in a massive post-apocalyptic West Virginia fighting against super mutants, robots, and other beings, this might be for you. Although I do think there are a number of other live service multiplayer games that feature far better gameplay, but they aren't set in the Fallout universe and building off of the gameplay of Fallout 4. All about what you prioritize, and for myself, I've just come to the realization that this will never be for me. Fallout 76 is far better than what it was day one, but I don't think it is enough. Anyway, there are many differing perspectives on Fallout 76's quality. This is just mine, and I would love to hear what you think about Fallout 76 down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.